Hey, what's up guys? In this video I want to talk about what the best radar detectors are available on the market if you are new to radar detectors, you're just getting started, and you're looking for your first radar detector to buy. Now, I've done a lot of different comparisons and tests and reviews here on my YouTube channel and on my website, and I've already got a bunch of different guides talking about this stuff, but something I hear about quite a bit is people say they spend hours watching videos and reading reviews, and when all is said and done, they still don't actually know which detector to buy. And this actually makes sense because I'm not here to be a salesperson and sell you stuff. I do tests and reviews and I provide educational information. Now, something I've noticed is if you're brand new, this can be a lot of information. So in this video, I just want to go ahead and dive into the most important things. So if you're just getting started and you're just trying to figure out which detector you should buy, this video is going to cover that. So getting started, if you're new to radar detectors, something you need to understand is actually what they are and how they work. The idea behind a radar detector is when a police officer is way up the street somewhere, he's got his radar gun turned on, and as people drive by, the speed of those moving vehicles pops up on his radar gun. Now, because that signal is just blasting out forward, you can pick him up way far in advance, so by the time you get close enough to where your car is being clocked and your speed is popping up on his radar gun, your radar detector's already been going off for a while, you've had advanced warning, and you can take action appropriately. Now, something to understand is a radar detector is not a police car detector. If that officer up the street doesn't have a radar gun in his car, or if he's busy doing something else and he doesn't have it turned on, your radar detector is not going to alert. So it's important to understand that this is not a police car detector, this is a radar detector, and it's designed to let you know when an officer way up the street somewhere is using his radar gun to look for speeders. Now, if you're trying to decide which radar detector is going to be best for you, there's three different things that we're going to be looking at, three different criteria that these detectors all have to meet in order to be a good choice for you. First and foremost, this detector has to be easy to use. If you're just starting out, we're going to want to look for a radar detector that's really simple and easy to use. Ideally, something that you can just plug in, put up on your windshield, and it just does everything for you. There's a lot of detectors out there that are awesome, but they're a little bit more advanced, they require some complicated setup, and they really require you to understand a lot of the technical details. We're going to want to look for radar detectors that don't require you to become a radar detector expert in order to really fully take advantage of. The second thing that we're going to want to look for is a radar detector that offers really good performance and is able to detect radar way up the street ahead of you. You see, in ideal situations, let's say a wide, open, flat desert, most any radar detector can give you plenty of warning. And a lot of the higher end ones can give you 10 miles plus of advanced warning, which sounds a little crazy, but if the police officer is, maybe turning off his radar gun for a little while and there's not a lot of traffic and he's only turning his radar gun when somebody gets close, your only advance warning may be a car that he's clocking 5, 6, 8, 10 miles way up ahead of you. So a detector with a lot of sensitivity is really important. Additionally, if you're driving in maybe less than ideal situations, there's a lot of trees around that can block and absorb the radar signal, or there's hills or curves. These things can all make it a lot tougher for a radar detector, and something that in ideal conditions may give you 10 miles of range, you may be lucky to only get a quarter mile or a half mile of warning. That can be the difference between a ticket or not. So we want a detector that's going to perform very well in all situations. It's going to give you plenty of warning time in most situations. And then finally, we want a detector that's really good at filtering out false alerts and isn't constantly crying wolf. This is actually the #1 complaint that people have about radar detectors, is that there's a lot of false alerts. So we need to talk about this briefly because this is going to be really important. So there's a number of different sources of radar around us besides police with their radar guns. One really common example are automatic door openers in shopping centers and grocery stores. Those actually use radar just like police radar guns to sense when there's something there. Same thing with the speed signs on the side of the road that you'll see in town. Now, in order to filter those out, you're going to want a detector with the GPS chip built in, so the detector can learn where that frequency signal is located in that location, and then in the future when you drive by it again, it recognizes that signal in that location and it filters it out for you. If it sees a different signal, let's say a police officer, in that case it will alert. But if you do a lot of driving in cities, a detector with a GPS chip that has this feature, we call it GPS lockouts, the ability to lock out this signal, is very, very helpful. Another source of false alert, and this one's actually tougher to deal with, a lot of cars nowadays have different safety systems built in, right? You've got radar-based collision avoidance systems. So there's radar cruise control, there's blind spot monitoring systems, and there's many, many different types in different cars. Some are easy to filter out. There's a couple that are actually very difficult to filter out. No detector can filter all of them out, but some definitely are better than others. And we're going to want a detector that's more modern, a newer detector that's designed to recognize these signals and filter them out. A lot of the older ones are not designed for this, so you'll get a lot more false alerts. So you are going to want something more modern that's designed for a lot of the more modern false alerts that we're seeing out on the road. Now that we know what to look for in a radar detector, let's go ahead and talk about what the best 4 choices are for you. We're going to start with your basic entry-level detector. The first radar detector is going to be the Uniden DFR6. It retails for $199. There's a lot of detectors that cost less, and they either are really poor in terms of performance, they don't give you adequate range, they're really bad in terms of false alert filtering. This is a detector that actually offers a really nice bang for the buck. It performs on par with a lot of the detectors that cost twice as much. The blind spot filter on this guy is actually one of the best at any price. So when we're talking bang for the buck, something that's really going to protect your driver's license, help you avoid speeding tickets, hikes to your insurance premiums, court costs, all that stuff, the Uniden DFR6 is a great choice. Now what it's lacking is it doesn't have that GPS chip I was talking about. So if you do a lot of driving in the city, you're going to have a lot more false alerts than something that does have that GPS chip. And every other detector that we talk about is going to have that. So if you do a lot of driving in cities, you're going to want to go ahead and take a look at one of these next detectors. If you drive mostly on the highway, I think the DFR6 is a great choice. Also, for those of you guys who live in California, the DFR6 is a great choice. The reason is a lot of those false alerts that I was talking about from door openers and blind spot monitoring systems, they operate on K-band, a particular range of frequencies. In California, almost none of the police officers use radar guns that operate on K-band, and so you can actually disable that whole frequency range altogether. And instead of buying a detector that has more advanced filtering, to filter out these false alerts, you can just disable the whole thing altogether and not have to buy a detector and spend money on features that you could otherwise avoid. So if you live in California, the DFR6 is actually a great choice. Just disable K-band, and you don't have to deal with some of the more advanced filtering stuff that these other detectors offer, so it's a nice way to save a little bit of money there too. Now, as far as your best general purpose city highway radar detector, in that case, the best choice, in my opinion, is going to be the Escort Max 2. This is my go-to recommendation for a city highway radar detector for people who are first starting out. This is the detector that I actually gave to my brother, who is not a radar detector expert and has no interest in becoming one. What's special about this guy is the fact that you can just put it up on your windshield and it's going to automatically start learning all the false alerts in your area and begin filtering them out for you over time without you having to mess with anything. In a sense, the more you drive with it, the quieter it becomes. And that's one of the best selling points of this guy and why I would actually recommend this one for most people who are just starting out. In terms of performance, it does a pretty good job at detecting radar. The blind spot filtering is pretty good with this guy. The GPS chip that gives it the ability to learn those false alerts has some other benefits as well. There's things like low-speed muting, so if you're in an area where it hasn't learned those false alerts, if you're in a parking lot at a drugstore or whatever, you're not speeding, you're not really worried about radar, it can go ahead and mute the detector for you thanks to the low-speed muting. It can also let you know where there's red light cameras and speed cameras in the area, which is very, very helpful.
Caution, red light camera ahead.
Now, the Max 2 also has a Bluetooth chip built in, which allows it to pair it with your phone, Android or iOS. When you add in the phone, you'll be able to run their app, Escort Live, and anybody who's running an Escort detector in Escort Live, whenever the detector senses a legit alert, it'll post that alert to the cloud, and then everybody who's driving around with one of these detectors will get notified. That's really, really handy.
Reported.
So automatically, as you're driving around, it can post that information to the cloud and notify everybody else, and their alerts will notify you, which is really nice. There are other ways to do that besides Escort Live, and I'll talk about that with the next detector. But again, if we're looking for something that's very automatic, integrated, plug and play, and easy to use, the Max 2 is going to be one of the best choices. This guy retails for about $350 or so, plus minus. So down in the video description, I've got links to where you can pick up all these detectors. Take a look to see what the current pricing is, because it does fluctuate. But that's the price range for the Max 2. Next, we're going to take a look at a very similar detector that if you're willing to put in a little bit of effort in terms of setting it up initially, you can actually have a quieter experience overall and save some cash. This detector is going to be the Uniden DFR7. Remember the DFR6 that we talked about at the very beginning? This is the same thing, but it adds that GPS chip. So for an extra $100 over the DFR6, instead of $199, it's $299, so $300, a little bit less than the Max 2. Now, how this guy compares to the Max 2? It also has that GPS lockout capability, where as you drive around, it can recognize and filter out those stationary false alerts for you. The main difference is this guy cannot do that learning process automatically. You have to teach it what's a false alert and what's legitimate. The way you do that is when a false alert pops up on screen, you just press the mute button twice, tell it this is a false alert, and next time I see it in the future, please stay silent. Now, this is super helpful for when you're driving around town. You do want to better understand what's going on around you, and so I actually have a video that teaches you how to use this feature, when to use it, when not to use it, etc. So the link to that video is down in the video description as well, as far as how to actually use the manual GPS lockouts instead of having everything fully automatic. But if you're willing to do the lockout process manually, the benefits are the blind spot filtering of the DFR7 is actually more effective than what you have on the Max 2. And so for that reason, it's actually going to be quieter when all is said and done. You do the initial setup with the GPS lockouts, but once you do, it's a very quiet detector, and it's got great performance as well, which is really nice. Now, the detector does not have a Bluetooth chip built in, so you can't pair it with your phone to get that cool cloud stuff. However, if you're running the free app Waze on your phone, you can do the same sort of thing. You can tell it, hey, I just saw a police officer, and you can get notified of when other people see police as well. Super helpful. One of the nice things about Waze is because there's so many users, way more than Escort Live, you get a lot more alerts, things get updated much more quickly, etc. The downside is, again, it's not as automated. Your detector can't do it for you automatically, and it's not going to display on your radar detector screen. It shows up on your phone, and the audio plays that way. So it is a little bit more manual, but if you're cool with running the app, honestly, I think you should run Waze anyways. Like, even if you don't have a detector, even if you're running Escort Live, it's that awesome. So running Waze is super helpful. And really the main downside is you've got the manual lockouts instead of the automatic. But again, watch the video. Link is in the video description, and it teaches you how to better use that feature, when to use it and when to not. So that detector costs less, requires a little bit more work initially, but once you get it all set up, in my opinion, you're going to have a better experience overall. Finally, the last detector that I want to talk about is one that comes with all the bells and whistles. This is for you guys who love having all the features and having a fully loaded detector. In that case, the one to take a look at is the Escort Max 360. This guy has all the benefits of the Max 2 with the automatic GPS lockouts, the low-speed muting, the red light camera alerts, all that good stuff. But the main difference is it also adds arrows to let you know where the threat is located. If it's in front of you, if it's way back behind you somewhere, it can also change and let you know once you've passed the source, which is really helpful, especially at night when things are really dark. The cop may have his lights turned off to be a little bit more hidden. Having a detector with arrows actually adds a lot to the overall experience. You can figure a lot of things out just based on the quality of the audio itself, but having their arrows really makes a big difference in practice. And so for that reason, if you're wanting a detector that has all the bells and whistles, I'd recommend the Max 360. This is one of the detectors that I run quite a bit. I like the fact that everything is so plug and play and integrated. Now, a lot of you guys know about the Valentine 1. Very similar detector. It also has arrows, but that one requires a lot more kind of manual setup and configuration, and a lot of the technical stuff in there, it kind of requires more advanced setup, and it's a lot closer to something that a radar detector expert, somebody who's much more of an enthusiast, would like. I really like the detector, but I don't recommend it for most people who are just starting out. If you're just starting out, again, for most people, I think the 360 would be a better choice because everything's built into the detector. It's much more plug and play. You just put it on the windshield, and it does a good job right out of the box. There are a bunch of different menu options and configuration capabilities that it has, and I've got the links for all of these detectors as far as walking you through the different settings and menu options so you can get familiar with how to use the detector and set it up. The videos for all of the detectors that we talk about are going to be down in the video description, so both where you can buy it as well as how to set it up. So as you can see, we've got a number of really good choices. They're designed to make everything as easy as humanly possible for you guys when you're just starting out. Any one of these detectors will be great choices as first detectors. You know, again, there's a lot of really good detectors that aren't in this video. I've covered them many times in other articles and other videos. The reason that they're not covered is because they require more advanced understanding, or they may be specialty detectors, or they may really depend on a phone for a lot of the functionality, and they'll require extra setup and configuration and and dongles and all this stuff. What we talk about here is designed to keep things as simple as possible for you guys. Now, once you have your detector actually picked out, there's 2 bonus items that I want to talk about, different accessories that you can add that will really help make your radar detector experience a lot better. The first one is going to be a hardwire cable. You see, in order to power your radar detector, it comes with a cigarette lighter cable. They all do. Plugs into your cigarette lighter, powers your detector. It's super convenient, super easy to use. The downside is, well, it blocks your cigarette lighter, so you can't use it for other devices. You have this ugly cable hanging down your dash, and so if you're going to be running a detector a lot, it really pays off to have a cleaner, more professional looking permanent install. And the way to do that is to run what's called a hardwire cable. Rather than plugging it into your cigarette lighter, you can actually run a cable around the trim of your vehicle so it's nice and hidden, and it plugs down into your fuse box somewhere for more permanent installation. The benefits are everything is hidden, it looks nice and clean, there's nothing hanging down your dash, your cigarette lighter is still free for other devices and chargers as you need, and so if you're looking for a permanent installation, a hardwire cable is a great thing to add in. Now, if you're looking to add one of those, I have an article on my website, I'll link to that in the video description as well, and it'll go over all the different hardwire cable options for different detectors. Some of them have different features and whatnot. Down there I also have a tutorial that will actually walk you through the installation process and show you everything you need and how to set everything up. If it's a little too complicated, no big deal. You can go to any sort of stereo installer place and they can take care of it for you. It doesn't take a lot of time or cost a lot of money. It's a pretty simple thing to do. So for those of you guys who want a nice, clean, professional, permanent looking installation, that's a great thing to do, is to add a hardwire cable. The second thing that I want to talk about is swapping out the included suction cup mount that it comes with. They actually come with a suction cup mount to stick it right onto your windshield. Those work great. I mean, it works with any car, makes it easy to move from car to car, right? The downsides are they leave really telltale marks on your windshield. So if you're ever trying to take your radar detector down, you don't want the suction cup marks visible to thieves or anything, or let's say, you know, over time those start to get kind of old, they don't stick as well, you got to replace them. Sometimes your radar detector will fall off your windshield. For a better mounting solution, something that's going to be more permanent, is you can actually get a blend mount. A blend mount is a really well-designed mount, and your radar detector hangs right underneath your rearview mirror. It's very accessible, it's a nice location, and you don't have anything on your windshield. Additionally, mounting things to your windshield, whether it's a radar detector or a cell phone or a GPS receiver or anything, in many states it's actually illegal, and so it's not something that's enforced a lot, but for those of you guys, if that applies to you, a good alternative is to actually mount it underneath your rearview mirror, and I've tested out all the different rearview mirror mounts. The best one out there is the blend mount, and if you want one of those, the link down in the video description will take you to where you can pick up one of those as well. So yeah, that's a quick look at the top 4 radar detectors for those of you guys who are just starting out with radar detectors and wondering which one to pick out, plus a couple bonus things with some nice accessories that you can add in to give yourself a better experience. So awesome, I hope that answers that. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, all the information down in the video description. I've got other videos, tutorials. If you want more information about the other detectors that I didn't talk about, some of the more advanced or specialty detectors, those will be down in the video description as well. So awesome. Thanks so much for watching. Happy driving, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video.